The words escaped before I could stop them, and the moment they did, the entire cafe seemed to lose its sound. I admitted that I was done believing love could still surprise me, done hoping every introduction would become something meaningful, done pretending another heartbreak would somehow be worth it. I expected sympathy, maybe an awkward silence. Instead, the woman sitting across from me slowly leaned closer, her eyes filling with emotion I had somehow never noticed before, and quietly asked, "What about me?" In that instant, years of loneliness collided with a truth that had been standing beside me all along. If you believe kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances can change a person's life, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel to become part of our community. Stories like this remind us that sometimes the greatest blessings arrive when we've already stopped looking for them. Grant Holloway had never imagined that giving up could feel so peaceful. At 39, he had built a respectable career restoring historic homes throughout a quiet New England town. He spent his days bringing forgotten buildings back to life, carefully repairing cracked walls, weathered floors, and broken windows. People admired his craftsmanship because he treated every home as if it held someone's memories instead of just bricks and wood. Yet despite restoring houses every day, he quietly accepted that his own heart would remain permanently unfinished. His friends insisted he simply hadn't met the right person. They invited him to cookouts, introduced him to coworkers, and encouraged him to try online dating again. Grant smiled politely every time, but each attempt left him more exhausted than hopeful. Some relationships faded because expectations never matched reality. Others ended when honesty revealed different dreams for the future. None ended with anger, but each goodbye quietly convinced him that perhaps companionship belonged to other people. The one constant in his life was Maren Ellis, the director of the town's historical society. She hired Grant for restoration projects, trusted his judgment completely, and had become the person he called whenever life became overwhelming. Maren possessed a calm warmth that made strangers feel welcome within minutes. She remembered birthdays, checked on elderly neighbors after storms, and somehow always knew when someone needed encouragement before they asked for it. Everyone assumed Grant and Maren would eventually become a couple. They laughed together effortlessly, shared lunches between renovation sites, and spent countless afternoons discussing architecture, books, and family traditions. Whenever someone hinted at romance, both of them laughed it away, insisting they were simply good friends. After hearing it enough times, everyone else stopped asking. Grant believed friendship was safer than risking another broken heart. Maren believed patience was kinder than forcing someone to notice what they weren't ready to see. One bright autumn afternoon, they met at their favorite neighborhood cafe after inspecting a century-old library scheduled for restoration. Sunlight poured through the wide front windows, painting golden rectangles across the wooden floor. Children laughed outside while families wandered through the nearby farmers' market. Everything about the day felt ordinary until Grant quietly confessed that he had officially deleted every dating app, declined every blind date, and decided he was finished searching for love. He said it without bitterness. There was no anger in his voice. Only acceptance. Maren stared at him longer than usual. Something inside her finally refused to remain silent. She leaned forward, her expression trembling between hope and fear, and softly asked, "What about me?" Grant blinked. For a moment he genuinely wondered if he had misunderstood her. Then he saw tears collecting in her eyes. Everything around him disappeared. He suddenly remembered every homemade soup she delivered when he caught the flu, every birthday she somehow celebrated before anyone else remembered, every renovation she volunteered to help with despite knowing nothing about construction, every conversation where she listened longer than she spoke, every encouraging note she tucked inside project folders before difficult jobs. He realized those weren't simply acts of friendship. They were years of quiet love. Grant lowered his eyes because he felt ashamed. Not because he didn't care for Maren. Because he suddenly understood how blind grief had made him. He admitted he had spent so many years mourning relationships that failed that he never recognized the one relationship that had quietly grown stronger beside him. Maren smiled through tears and admitted she had almost told him countless times. Every time she gathered enough courage, he happened to be talking about another date, another disappointment, or another hope that someone else might finally understand him. She never wanted to become another source of pressure. She loved him enough to wait, even if waiting meant nothing ever changed. Grant reached across the table and gently held her hand for the first time. Neither of them rushed another word. Outside, the afternoon continued exactly as before. Inside, two lives had quietly begun changing forever. Their first official date happened 3 days later, although both laughed that it felt almost identical to every lunch they had shared during the previous 5 years. The only difference was honesty. They no longer hid small gestures of affection behind the label of friendship. They no longer wondered whether certain smiles meant something deeper. The uncertainty had disappeared. Yet beginning a relationship after years of friendship came with unexpected challenges. Grant struggled with guilt. He worried Maren deserved someone who had recognized her value immediately instead of after giving up on everyone else. He feared she might secretly feel like a second choice. One afternoon while restoring an old farmhouse porch, he confessed those fears. Maren quietly listened before reminding him that timing often matters as much as feelings. She explained that years earlier Grant had still been carrying wounds from heartbreak. Even if she had confessed then, he probably wouldn't have been emotionally capable of receiving the love she offered. Sometimes people aren't rejecting another person's heart. Sometimes they're simply trying to survive their own. Those words lifted a burden Grant had carried for months. Meanwhile, Maren faced her own quiet fears. She wondered whether transforming friendship into romance might eventually destroy both. She worried disagreements would feel heavier because there was more to lose. She questioned whether they had built impossible expectations by knowing each other so well. Those fears surfaced unexpectedly during ordinary moments. Instead of pretending everything was perfect, they promised each other something simple. Whenever fear appeared, honesty would arrive before silence. That promise changed everything. Arguments became conversations instead of battles. Misunderstandings became opportunities instead of endings. Neither tried to win. Both tried to understand. As winter approached, Grant received an offer from a large restoration company in another state. The salary nearly doubled his income. The projects were prestigious. Friends insisted accepting would be foolish to refuse. Years earlier he would have accepted immediately. This time he hesitated. The decision wasn't only about money anymore. It was about home. He spent several afternoons considering every possibility before finally visiting the oldest house he had ever restored. The elderly owner, Eleanor Whitmore, greeted him with tea and remembered every detail of the renovation they had completed years before. Grant admitted he didn't know what to do. Eleanor smiled knowingly. She told him people often confuse success with distance. Sometimes opportunities require leaving. Sometimes success means recognizing the life already waiting exactly where you are. Only he could decide which future would let him sleep peacefully years from now. Grant walked through the restored home one last time. Every repaired staircase. Every polished window. Every preserved fireplace. He realized none of his proudest work had been about making buildings impressive. It had always been about helping families stay together inside places filled with love. How could he abandon the very life he encouraged everyone else to protect? He declined the offer. Not because ambition disappeared. Because his definition of success had changed. Months later, Grant and Maren organized a volunteer restoration project for a neglected community center where children attended after-school programs. Dozens of neighbors arrived carrying paintbrushes, tools, flowers, and homemade lunches. Elderly residents shared stories while teenagers learned practical skills. Parents worked beside grandparents. The building slowly transformed into something beautiful again. Watching everyone work together, Grant suddenly understood something remarkable. Broken things don't heal because one extraordinary person fixes everything. They heal because many ordinary people choose not to walk away. That realization became the foundation of their relationship. Neither expected perfection. They simply promised not to leave when life became difficult. One sunny spring afternoon, exactly 1 year after that unforgettable cafe conversation, Grant invited Maren to the restored library where their newest project had finally been completed. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, filling the reading room with brilliant colors. Shelves stood proudly restored. Children's laughter echoed from the corner where volunteers were organizing books. Grant thanked Maren for teaching him something no failed relationship ever had. He explained that love isn't always dramatic when it begins. Sometimes it grows quietly inside everyday kindness until one ordinary conversation changes everything. He admitted the greatest mistake of his life wasn't trusting the wrong people. It was overlooking the person who had consistently chosen him without demanding anything in return. With tears shining in both their eyes, he asked whether she would continue building a life with him, not because either of them needed saving, but because together they had become stronger, kinder, and more hopeful than either could have imagined alone. Maren answered before he even finished asking. Her joyful embrace said everything words never could. The applause from friends, neighbors, librarians, and children nearby filled the room with warmth that no grand celebration could have matched. Before this story comes to an end, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever discovered that someone who truly cared for you had been beside you all along, or has patience ever changed the direction of your life? Please leave a meaningful comment sharing the lesson or emotion that stayed with you most. Grant eventually realized that restoring houses had prepared him for restoring his own heart. Damaged foundations can become stronger than before when repaired with care. Cracked walls don't erase the memories built inside them. And people who believe they've reached the end of hope sometimes discover that hope has been patiently waiting just one step away, asking only to be noticed. The happiest chapter of his life didn't begin when he searched harder for love. It began the moment he stopped looking past the person who had quietly believed in him through every disappointment, every doubt, and every ordinary day. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. May this story remind you that kindness is never wasted, forgiveness opens doors that pride keeps closed, and sometimes the love that changes your life has been walking beside you all along, waiting for the day you finally look up and see it.